welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be talking about how to draw a horse. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. So, let's get arting. Alright, so here is the horse. Might change some of the colors around, but for now we're going to have like a little bit of a white nose into like a cream body, and then white or blonde hair on the horse. So we're going to start by the nose with the white, which I've already selected. Right. Just one, line in between the other. We're kind of doing what I typically will call a secondary sort of sketch step, where really I'm sorting out the direction of the fur so that when we add highlights and shadows it's a little easier. So the white on the nose we're not going to have go up too much. It's going to be the same on either side though, right? So you can see I'm changing the direction of the, ooh, that was a little much though, of the strokes, right? So we'll have them come up to the edge of the nostril, we'll have them come up here, the top of the nose here maybe. Same over here, just sort of playing this by ear. No specific need to get it exact, right? Which means we'll do the same on the sides and then maybe leave that as a dip to transition. And then I'm torn between this color or this one for the body. I'm gonna go with the lighter one for now. Right, and we'll just pick up where we left off. It's coming straight up. There's that little, there's several spots where there's going to be like a gap. I don't know if that's the right thing to say. Right, because there's that, it gaps a little bit before it drops back down. Middle of the head, we're going to go straight up. Now, usually I aim for the eyes off to the side. However, horses, zebras, animals like that typically will have kind of in their forehead a spot where fur is converging in different ways. And it's probably what we're going to do, is that convergence. Right, so the hair going straight up, that won't really be affected. But what will be affected is what's coming over here from the side, right? And that's on either side. So we'll have some coming up and then some angling down. And then some angling up, all from that center point. All right. Common enough, and then we'll come, straight over, right? And then up over the eye, you'll kind of loop it up because we have that bulge over our eyes. A lot of animals do. Same thing over here, but we have the hair coming down. That's blocking us a bit, but straight over to the edge of the eye, and then, but not into, a little overzealous. Right, and then we'll go up and over, and then off the back. Right. And then underneath, you're just coming straight down. Right, underneath, bringing that down. All right, so I'm going to finish out this tannish color on the face, and I'll be right back. Ears, I'm going to have some white tips, but otherwise same color, right? And then it's kind of fading off into the center. So I probably should be doing more to fade that, but that'll really come up a little bit more clearly in the shadows and highlights. Right, so roughly the same point where that tip is gonna be not so clear. And then I just need to, you know, get the white to finish out the ear. That's what we have so far. So let's come back down here with that white and finish out the ear tip. Same thing over here. Okay. Oy. So then we have the mane, and again, I'm torn on if I'm gonna do it with white. So for now, we're gonna sketch it in with white. I might change it to like a little bit more of a blonde. Ooh, stone cut. That scared me. We're gonna do it a little bit. We're gonna do it white, and then maybe change it to a blonde. But for now, we're gonna do it white and see how it goes. If I decide it should be blonde instead, well, I'm just gonna change it because I can do that. The power that artists hold is immeasurable. Right, so I just have some of the mane coming down from this particular angle. You wouldn't see a whole lot. The big flowy mane. You would have some hair probably behind the ear, right, like we have here. If I can do it. My hand doesn't want to make the motion. And then otherwise, you know, you have the bangs of the horse coming down. Long, flowy locks that horses have. Right, nice and easy. And then we're probably going to be a bit more controlled than I usually am when I'm doing something like this, as far as the edge of the mane is concerned, just because, you know, if I'm printing it on a shirt, I need to be able to add a black background to it. So being able to have some control over exactly where that hair is popping out is going to be important, which is really going to be a little bit more important with the highlights and shadows coming up, but either way. Right, we have all of that. Let's see how this storm develops. All right, and then bringing down these little bit of locks. Okay, so that's what we have so far, which is a good start. It's a pretty horse. Okay, so I'm actually gonna start with the tan color for highlights and shadows. I'm gonna have the highlight coming from above and to the right. As always, that means above and in front of, not behind or next to. But all edges are in shadow, right? So above and to the right, even this side's gonna be in shadow. And so that's backed off pin pressure. And then anywhere the mane is also going to be actually in shadow because the hair itself is going to be casting some. But even though that mane stops here, right, I'm going to continue that shadow down of that eye, by the eye. Right, just backed off pin pressure. It's not much on this side because this is the side of the light source. But it will be some. Right, and then I just need to make sure my, especially by the eye, my lines are good. Now above the eye as well, where the eye dips down, it's going to be in shadow. Same thing on this side, where the eye dips down, it's going to be in shadow. And then otherwise just kind of that edge. There will be some shadowing right here, right? Because we have an actual gap. So once again, you have an edge. So there'd be some shadowing here. Shadowing, of course, all the way underneath as well. And then, well, of course, on the back side, you'd have a lot more shadowing. Because you're going to have, you know, all of this back here in shadow. Now, technically, the eye on this side underneath would be in shadow. Artistically, not so much. So we can make some artistic changes, and I usually do, by adding a little burst of light. But first I'm going to get all these shadows in. Right, so the shadow on this side would be deeper. Just need to make sure everything lines up. So still very light pin pressure. And then for now I am going to do it in shadow, but that won't stay that way. I'm going to push this over, right, because their heads would turn. Basically, this is what I call sometimes giving myself a runway. I'm basically giving myself enough room to blend the highlight and the shadow. But it's a lot easier to add highlight than it is to take it away. So it's easier to do something in shadow to get all of this right and then worry about, you know, what that means elsewhere. Depends on the light source, it depends on a lot of things. Right, so all of this, right? And then just blending it in. And then when we add the full pin pressure, it'll look radically different. Right, so then full pin pressure, not full pin pressure, whew! Still that backed off pin pressure over here, right, just getting the shadows in. Backed off pin pressure up. There's going to be some backed off pin pressure, again, where the hair is casting a shadow. Anywhere where I think it might be curving in a way that would cast a shadow, right? So this one's kind of coming up and then angling down. As it angles down, that shadow would minimize. This one over here is blocking the other side. So probably a bit of minimization there. Through here, shadow. Getting all the shadows in, and then we'll do the highlights. Definitely on this back side. Definitely down through here. Just a little bit. And then probably under here a little bit. Not much, but some. And then probably under here. And off to the side here. Same here, right? You have hair kind of blocking. And obviously this is not only on the other side, but up top. Once we redraw the hair and add highlights and shadows, we can also reposition ourselves. Right, okay. Now, I'm going to push it just a little bit more. My grand now was just to add more shadow. Okay. So then to add highlights, you either put full pin pressure, which is this, right, So you either do the full pin pressure, see how big of a difference that is, or you add more lines and back off your pin pressure, and I do that when I'm near an edge that is that has shadow, right? You can see not putting more pin pressure, I'm actually pretty backed off, but I can brighten it up pretty quickly by just adding a ton of lines. What's nice about that is with the backed off pin pressure, my line is thinner. Full pin pressure, it's thicker, so at the thinner line, it's easier to blend with what is already a thin line because it's a shadow. So it's relatively straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and get the highlights in for this color for the rest of the face, and I'll be right back. We'll get to the ears later. I'm going to blend in the white and see how it goes. Not quite in love with how I have it like split, but we'll see, because you can blend a lighter color into a darker color, so the white is the one to blend. Like before though, right, all edges are in shadow, so this edge in shadow. In fact, it might be easier for me to just go ahead and do the entire nose in shadow. Sometimes I do that when I'm working with very little space, and it's going to be important to match my shadows up over here with the shadows I've already created. Right, and of course you have the nose. So this whole back side is in shadow for sure. But at some point it's going to not be. Yeah, I'm going to do this whole nose tip in shadow, and I'll be right back. Down where the nostrils are going in would clearly be in shadow, but the connection up here not so much, right? Because we've already added the lines, I don't have to put full pin pressure to brighten this up. This is once again just more lines to brighten it up. This is where we can blend it in, right? So I can push that white up a bit on both sides because, well, and that'll blend it, and I can taper off my pin pressure to blend it better. Yeah, okay. Likewise, right, all edges are in shadow. We have this dipping down, but on this side, underneath, it's coming kind of back out, so it doesn't have to be as deep there. And then bring it down underneath is going to be in shadow. So just doing this is why it's a little easier, right, is I can just add more lines and it's a little easier to build up a highlight than to do a direct hard push. Right, same thing over here. We have kind of that coming down, so we'll taper that off and then bring this down just like the other side for the mouth that you can't really see. Do a little bit in here, right, so the nose disappearing in, but we'll have more of a view on this side than we will on this side, though you'll still get some. And then just blend it in a little better. Alright, and then if I want to, I can push some of that blending. Or reverse it and take away some of the white. Right now it looks a little out of place, but that might be because it's the only spot where the white is fully done. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get the I'm going to do white just for the moment, just to get it in and see if I want it white or blonde. But we're going to get the mane in. Right, so it's just, you know, it's long strokes. Hair will just fill in all the gaps. And this can be a bit varied. Right, I want to make sure that there's no black left. You can add the white in without really having to sketch this very much, but you can have strands coming off. I might not do as many strands coming off around here. We'll see. Technically the same rule applies, however, because of the nature of like long mane, it's a little bit different because you'll have individual hairs that are kind of pushing out, which will create, you know, it'll be a highlight without having to do a full shadow. You know, all edges are in shadow, but with this it's a little different, the way that would work. So of course up in here, you know, once you're definitely like getting pretty far away, you could be a little bit more in shadow. And on this side where the horse is actually blocking, you know, the light. But even then, because the mane is so long, you know, anytime you have long mane like this, some of this would apply. The mane is so long, you would probably still have some strands at the ends catching the light. Right, so all of that, even though that's against it, it would be potentially catching the light. And what's nice about doing something like this is you give it some extra grounding behind the figure. So having like hair coming down like this, you know, gives it some extra oomph. Just have to make sure it makes sense. And I want to make sure it doesn't run over the top of, you know, the horse. Right. Now you would have the ear. So this ear is potentially is blocking and creating a bit of a shadow in some places. And then, you know, not in others. Over on this side, again, you're probably going to have some shadowing right up against the horse. And then probably some highlighting as it gets away from the horse. Right, so just enough. But, you know, a lot of it's going to be in highlight. You're going to have some shadowing over here as well. This is going to be on that far side, so that would create a bit of a shadow potentially. Maybe a little bit here. Again, some of this, but not all of this. And then maybe some as we lead into the ear. Alright, and then the rest of this I'm going to do in highlight. So I'm going to finish out the mane, and I will be right back. Now I am going to come down here. It's a little bunched right there, so I'm just going to take the lasso tool. You could also take the eraser tool. And I'm going to create just a few spots where it's erasing. Not much. It's just a little thick. Okay, apparently that is that you? can't I find... Oh, maybe I have. Oh, I did. Okay. Oh yeah, that's not as bad. It just is enough that it tempers that out a bit. And then we can turn this to blonde. If we wanted to, I could even push up, you know, this white here. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and finish, we'll do the ears, and then I'll go back and revisit the hair. Actually, I am going to do something real fast. I'm just going to take some strands, make it look more realistic. Okay, and then we're going to do a little bit of that here, but not as much as I would have typically done. Just need to do enough. Right, it's not full pin pressure when I do this. It's just sort of, it helps make the hair look more natural. Strands out of place, you know, not everything's perfect, and it wouldn't be. Right, and just by doing that, you've messed, you know, we've messed the hair up. Do a few long strands. Even have some coming down behind the ear. We'll get the ear tips in. Right, this little bit of white. And then we'll do that creamier, browner, reddish color thing. So I'm just doing light pin pressure here. I'm just debating on if I should go ahead and add shadows to it. Probably should. Or if I should let it be and get in the other color first. I mean, if I add highlights, we'll have a little bit here, a little bit on the edge, same, a little bit here, a little bit on this edge. Okay. Now for the cream color, and then we'll see how it looks once I get the ears. So I'm going to go ahead and do both ears in, you know, this color and this tan color in shadow, and I'll be right back. And then we'll probably do just a little bit, right, because it's curved, so there might be a little bit of light catching over here, just like there was for the white, down to a point, maybe a little bit on the edge, and then the same thing, maybe a little bit where it's catching as it turns inward towards the light source. Before it transitions over to shadow, but maybe a little bit right on the edge-ish. Okay, that's what we're faced with. Now, if I turn the hair blonde, I need to go into the yellow. It's going to be like a light yellow. Maybe in here. See how that looks? Select all, we're going to nudge it and turn that off, and then fill it with the foreground color. That's a little much. Let's try dulling that out a little bit more, turning it a little creamier. Oh yeah, I think that works. It's much more subtle. much more subtle, but it's clearly not the white that you have on the ear tips and the nose. I am going to change how this is blended down here. I think I'm going to have it come up a bit. In fact, what I should do is probably select all of this and change the color. I think I am going to do that and change the color. And if I'm going to do that, then I'm also then going to blend it. I'm just debating on if I like this or not. That's why I've been so quiet. Okay. So, I'm going to start by drawing in the pupil on both sides. And then we're going to fill it in just by creating like a semicircle. Now I'm going to take the elliptical Maki tool. I'm going to come down here and create, an oval, circle, oval, depending on what you've drawn. In this case, it's an oval. I'm going to erase to create the pupil, make sure it's nice and clean. I'm going to select and inverse it, go back to my brush tool, and then I'm going to draw it at a slightly different angle. It's going to be the best way to make sure I get all the little gaps in place. I'm going to do select inverse, reselect the elliptical Maki tool, drag it over to the other side and do the same thing. Do what I just did. Right, erase, select inverse, take the hard round brush tool again, and then draw in a different direction. And then I am going to deselect. Now, light source coming from above and to the right, so I'm going to put full pin pressure against the pupil on the opposite side of the light source. Alright, and then full pin pressure on the side of the light source into the eye. Edges will go into shadow, and that full pin pressure will go all the way underneath the eye. Again, edges going into shadow. Alright, and that connects in. Not a lot of space to work with here. And then by the pupil will be in shadow. And then up as you get up here, right, as you go in towards the black, that's going to be in shadow. And, still that edge in shadow, and then this back side in shadow as well, but not as much. So it's okay to have some brightness there. You really want that bulk to be down through here, but you get a lot of that and still be okay. Right, and then the same thing on this side. Less space to work with. Right, edges in shadow, but until then, that full pin pressure connected in, and really the rest in shadow. And just sort of blend it in. Alright, put the bulk of that highlight right through here. Just like we did over here. Okay, that's what we're left with. I'm going to make this slightly redder brown. See how that looks. I know, I keep changing my colors. Usually I'm pretty solidified here. I'm going to fill with the foreground color and have a slightly redder brown. Yeah, I think that gives him some oomph, or her. Bring that up and just blending it in. Okay. Now I'm going to take the elliptical Maki tool again after I turn this to white. We're going to make a little bit of a circle in the pupil in the highlighted section. And we're going to fill it with the foreground color. Drag it over, do the same thing on this side, roughly in the same spot, same height. The foreground color. And then we're going to come in with the lasso tool and make it look like there's hair blocking this one, right? So just make some jagged edges, and it's like the fur is blocking it. Yeah. And there you have a horse. What's nice, right, about horses is you can really color them whatever way you want. You can have the mane looking however. You know, you could have it really kind of flowing off on one side or the other. You know, you could have the colors whatever you want, however you want, the markings however you want. So much flexibility to create your own horse. I just realized that I have some sort of, where did I put you? There. Not part of the drawing. There we go. Alright, so that's how you draw a horse. I hope that was helpful. In the floating nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.